Good afternoon and welcome to the Underbelly podcast, brought to you by Clarity Financial, as we peek beneath, poke around, and expose what other outlets don't want you to know about finance, economics, politics, and anything else we can think of. As always, we welcome your feedback. You can find us on Facebook or online at realinvestmentadvice.com. And now let's step inside the studio for the Underbelly podcast, starting right now with John Coumarianos and Jesse Colombo. We'll have a special guest on the phone here in just a little bit. Guys, it's been quite a week, and I thought we'd start off by looking at where we are on this Friday before Memorial Day. What are the markets doing? Are they going to go out with a whimper as predicted?
So the Dow's down about 74 points, not a big deal. S&P's down about 8 points. For the year, the S&P's up about 2.5%. Bonds are down a little more than 2%. So if you have a kind of classic balanced portfolio, you're probably flat for the year. Your stocks are up a little, your bonds are down a little. Real estate stocks are down about 5% on the year, I think.
Yeah.
So that's how the markets stand for the year at this point.
And Jesse and I were talking earlier this morning. You know, you can drive yourself nuts trying to watch this stuff on a day-to-day or week-to-week basis.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
It's the long view that you want to take to keep to retain your sanity.
That's right.
Definitely.
So Jesse, you were looking at oil prices this afternoon as well, and noticed some interesting things. You're the bubble meister. Is there one frothing up here?
Well, I've been warning about oil over the last few months. I've produced a few video segments and I've come on to the radio program and discussed that and the podcast. Basically, what I've been saying for the last several months is that the smart money in the oil futures market, the commercial futures hedgers, have had a massive short position, meaning they expect prices to go down, whereas the dumb money or the speculators, the large funds that use trend-following trading systems, have developed a massive bullish position of about 700,000 net futures contracts long, and also the smart money have a similar short position of a similar size. So everyone expected oil to keep going up, 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 up. That was the consensus view. And now you have it down. I mean, obviously, it's continued to go up, but over the last several months. But now, today, it's actually down 4.37%. So my concern is that there's going to be some sort of a liquidation sell-off, that if this has legs, that this could really continue, and that you have these funds, these speculators will eventually be forced to sell off or basically liquidate their current large position, which could get very scary in the oil market, especially when combined with the rising dollar. Whenever you have the dollar going up, that's typically bearish for oil and commodities. And so far, even though the dollar,
they're priced in dollars.
Because they're priced in dollars,
Yeah.
exactly. And what's interesting is that it has not reacted. The oil market has not reacted so far to the bull market in the dollars. So and now
an
maybe
unusual circumstance where the dollar's been going up at the same time where
Exactly.
oil and some other commodities have been going up as well. And that
Right,
doesn't
exactly.
It doesn't often happen.
Exactly. I mean, today the catalyst was basically OPEC and Russia saying that they were willing to increase production, and that was the catalyst that caused the big sell-off. So as a result, oil prices dropped. Then you had durable goods orders came out down 1.7% today, and that caused U.S. Treasury bonds to spike and yields to drop.
Right. So we're under 3% now on the 10-year Treasury. You mentioned bond prices spiked and yields are dropping.
Yep.
So still above 2.9, but we've been below 3 now for a couple of days. I think we're holding steady at 2.5 maybe on the 2-year. So the curve still looks relatively flat. We talk about this because the yield curve has been a good predictor of recessions. We're not quite flat yet. I think there's a 50 basis point or so spread between the 2 and the 10-year treasuries. So, but everybody, of course, is watching that pretty carefully.
How much of a factor is what's going on in Iran with this I want to say it's a Mexican standoff. It's an Iranian standoff.
Yeah.
With the nuclear deal that has just fallen apart. And there was some discussion about whether or not that was going to affect oil prices. How much oil does Iran actually pump into the global market?
Jesse?
Off the top of my head, I couldn't tell you the exact figures at this exact moment, but see, I think a lot of that's already priced in. That you had so many of the speculators were really. That's one of the reasons why they were getting so long over the past 6 months or so, is that they're pricing in a lot of this geopolitical turmoil. And the thing is, whenever you have, it's basically like a sell the news type of scenario. So that's what I'm concerned about, is that they're just going to be basically selling off now that you have this news coming to the front. So a lot of it has to do with intermarket analysis, basically what the Forex markets are doing, that is being an actual catalyst.
I just was able to look it up. It's actually less than I thought. Iran is responsible for 5.1% of the world's crude oil, which is about just under 4 million barrels a day. By comparison, this I happen to know off the top of my head. I think the U.S., Saudi Arabia, and Russia, those three countries are close to 10 million barrels a day. So Iran's not a tiny producer, but it is less than I would have thought at 5% of the world.
So they really don't have a whole lot of leverage by saying, well, if you do this, we're going to do that with our oil.
It would seem. That's true. So how unusual is it to have oil drop also on Memorial Day?
No kidding. Yeah, they're saying that more people are going to be traveling this weekend than have been on the road for Memorial Day weekend since 2005.
Wow.
That's
incredible.
An interesting statistic.
Yeah.
Of course, we had Ford just decide to cut its line of sedans in the U.S. and now will only produce SUVs or maybe one or two sedans.
And pickup trucks.
How could I forget?
And muscle cars. Didn't they say that too?
Well, the Mustang.
The Mustang, which
is
I see
actually
everywhere here in Houston. I was really kind of impressed by the fact that you see so many of these muscle cars everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
Well, at the same time, it's also a little bit concerning, too, from the perspective of I've been warning about the oil, basically the bubble in the automobile industry, where you have these record low interest rates, or had record low interest rates, and also low leasing rates and so on. And that's what enabled people to buy or lease these extremely expensive cars that they would otherwise not be able to afford.
Yeah.
So I see that. I see the Camaro. I see all these muscle cars everywhere. And, that's been really boosting the fortunes of these automakers. But it's just, unfortunately, it's due to cheap credit.
So are either one of you guys big fans of the Indianapolis 500, which is running this Sunday?
It is running. I'm not a huge race car fan, I have to say.
I don't follow it. I love cars myself. I just haven't watched it in a while, but I personally love cars. I would love to get some sort of a nice sports car one of these days, but
yeah, not an Indy car.
No, probably not an Indy car.
Well, this will be the last race for Danica Patrick. She's retiring after the Indianapolis 500. She made an announcement that she was going to retire way back. I think she said she'd do the Daytona and the Indy.
Okay.
Well, this is it. Oh. This will be the last run for her.
Wow.
And how many years has she been racing?
Now that I don't know.
She's relatively young, right? What is she?
She's in her 30s now, which is old for a racer.
Old for a racer.
Yeah.
Is it? Okay.
Well, yeah. 235, 240 miles an hour.
I first heard about her in 2007. I'm sure her career started earlier than that.
You've been following her closely.
Remember that. I'm not following her, but that's when the name popped up somewhere in the media. I remember hearing her for the first time.
All right. This might be a good place to do a little segue into the sports realm. And the Houston Rockets have been on a remarkable run. They won their game last night against the Warriors. Is that who played?
Golden State.
Let's get somebody on the line who really knows a little bit more about this.
Sure.
And joining us from his secret lair is the Houston Rockets network announcer, Adam Clanton, on the line with us here on the Underbelly podcast. Adam, welcome to the show.
How you guys doing?
We're all right.
Great.
Are you rested up from last night?
No. That was literally a physically draining experience. Craig Ackerman on that Eric Gordon 3-point make actually pulled his back out. He literally pulled his back, making the call standing up out of his chair. So
really,
it was one of those nights at Toyota Center. Yep.
You know it's bad when the announcers pull themselves out. So, and we had an injury last night too, right?
Yeah, that's not the only poll. I was about to say the news coming down in the last hour that Chris Paul's hamstring is going to keep him out of Game 6 in Oakland tomorrow night, and so it's going to be all hands on deck for the Rockets. But the good news is they did win the game, as you mentioned, so they have a 3-2 series lead. It's a best of 7, so they can close out the Warriors if they can somehow get an MVP caliber performance out of James Harden, which they didn't get last night. They do that tomorrow night and play the kind of defense they've been playing, they've got as good a shot as any.
The Rockets organization has been one in the past that when their backs are up against the wall, they surprise everybody and they pull it out with a win. Now, they've also been the guys that have blown 20-point leads in the fourth period and completely fall apart too. What do you think's going to happen?
Well, you've got, the Warriors are the greatest team ever assembled. They're like a video game team. And so they're going to be, and, they're facing elimination. Their season's on the line and they're playing at home. So you're going to get, you're going to get their best shot. But the problem for them that is, I think, gotten bigger and bigger with each passing game in this series, especially now that they're playing every other night and not having like 3 days in between like the first couple of games, is that they are reacting to what the Rockets are doing defensively. They're not doing what they do on offense. They're not having the free-flowing style that they normally have where everybody touches the ball and the passes are just, it's like a hot potato. They're kind of going into that isolation ball that many people in the national media criticize the Rockets for doing too much in Game 1. The Rockets were like, well, we're going to double down on it because that's what won us 65 games this year, and they went out and won Game 2, tied up the series, and now they have a 3-2 lead. The Warriors have been getting smothered by the Rockets' defense, especially in the fourth quarter. And if you look at the last two games, the Rockets have held them to 92 and 94 points, respectively. That's a big deal when you're talking about a team that has 4 All-Stars and averaged 113 points a game in the regular season.
How about the other conference? I think the Celtics are playing the Cavaliers. If the Rockets close out the Warriors, is there a team they match up better against? Is there a team they prefer to play?
Well, the Celtics have a 3-2 lead right now, so if they win tonight in Cleveland, they're going to be the ones that'll be representing the East in the NBA Finals. But of course, LeBron James wants to have something to say about that tonight. I don't know if there is a preference. I think the Rockets right now, especially with the news this morning, they've done a really good job of taking it one game at a time, the old cliche, but you have to do that against a team like the Warriors. I think a lot of people, especially in the national media, are looking at this Western Conference final between the Rockets and the Warriors as the de facto NBA Finals. Not to say that, either of those teams are just going to sweep their way to the title. I think either of these teams in the East would have, maybe a win or two, but I just think that the talent level for either of these two clubs in the West is so far exceeding what the East can provide. LeBron's an all-time, future Hall of Fame type talent. Brad Stevens has worked miracles with all the injuries the Celtics have had to deal with this year, but they're just not on the same level as these two teams that are duking it out in the West. And so I don't know if there's a preference so much as they're just trying to get to the finals right now as healthy as possible.
Sure.
That's harder for the Rockets to say right now, obviously.
So how do you prepare for the next game? What does Houston have to do other than miraculously heal their injured player to overcome and take the next game?
Well, they did something in Game 4 that hadn't been done in 16 playoff games prior. They beat the Warriors on their home floor. Ever since they signed Kevin Durant in the summer of 2016 and added him to an already 73-win team, which is just so unfair on so many levels. The Warriors have been basically indestructible at home, both in the regular season and in the playoffs. The Rockets already beat them there once. They beat them there on opening night to ruin the ring ceremony this year for the Warriors after they got their championship banner hung. The Rockets went out and beat them in overtime. So the Rockets can do what they've already done twice. And the ironic thing about that opening night win is that they did that on a night where Chris Paul had a knee injury and just wasn't really effective. So they're essentially going to have to do that again, but they've proven they can do it, and they've got a rotation of players that, like I said, not only have the offense to hang with a Warriors team like this, but also the defense the Rockets have been playing, especially in the last few games of this series, has been just spectacular, and the Warriors are feeling it, and they're reacting to it. You saw it last night if you watched that game. So the Rockets just stick to their game plan and, maybe get a monumental performance, which James Harden is due for one, from their MVP. I think they're actually – I'm a lot more optimistic than a lot of people are right now with the team flying out to Oakland this afternoon.
All right. So tip-off is Sunday evening. What time? Houston time?
Well, actually, it's going to be tomorrow night. It's Saturday
it's tomorrow night. Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's to the point where they're playing every other game now. So they'll, Game 6 will be tipping off at 8 o'clock tomorrow night in Oakland, and then if there is a Game 7, which would mean the Rockets lost Game 6, they'd come back here to Houston for a Monday night tip-off that would also be at 8 p.m. Central.
Okay, so there's this rumor mill that says the teams will bounce back and forth, and they'll play this thing. They'll take it all the way to 7 games just for the glory of it all. Any fact to that you can tell?
Well, I know that the NBA certainly wouldn't mind if this series went another game after Game 6 for ratings purposes and obviously the revenue. I don't know. I think the officiating was pretty putrid last night in the second half, especially on the side of the Rockets. But I think that for the most part, this has been a pretty, if not well played, then a pretty balanced series. I don't feel like it's leaned one way or the other in any sort of like unsavory way. So, I'm sure the league would love it if it went longer. But I think these two teams, they know what's at stake. They know each other very well at this point. This is how all playoff series works, especially this late in the postseason. And I don't think there's going to be any shenanigans or anything like that. I think these two teams are just going to be duking it out. Golden State's going to be very desperate. Houston's obviously going to kind of want to win one for Chris Paul since he's not going to be able to play, and he will be traveling with the team, so he'll be there on the sideline. I just think it's going to be a spectacular latest game in this series, and hopefully for the Rockets fans, they can wrap it up tomorrow night.
So it's not scripted like wrestling.
Not for the most part. You see, wrestling's real. It's still real to me.
So, Adam, are you going to watch the Indy 500 on Sunday afternoon?
Oh, a bunch of guys turning left permanently for a couple of hours. I might check out a lap or two.
And what about Danica Patrick retiring after this race this weekend?
I like what she has been able to do in that sport. I kind of use that term loosely. I don't know if I necessarily consider it a sport, but it is a sporting event, and I like what she did for the cause of women in that industry. I think she's been a really good pioneer in that regard. I think she's been a good spokesperson for that sport, and I think she probably just has some other interests she wants to get to, and is a very marketable commodity. So I understand it. It's probably she's feeling like it's time to step away, kind of like Ronda Rousey making the transition from MMA to the WWE.
Exactly.
She's versatile. Yeah, so she's versatile, and she's going to, capitalize on that versatility, and good for her for doing so.
All right, very good. Prediction for tomorrow night's game?
Well, I said I'm optimistic more than some people. I thought that the Rockets would win last night. They'd lose in Game 6, and they'd come back and wrap it up in Game 7. But you never know when teams kind of have this sort of inspirational situation happen. Maybe the Rockets shock the world and win Game 6 without Chris Paul tomorrow night. I'd certainly like to see it.
Sure would be fun. Adam Clanton, the network studio announcer for the Houston Rockets on the Underbelly podcast. Thanks so much for jumping on the line with us.
Thank you, guys.
All right. Have a good weekend.
You too.
And yes, that is the fruit of my loin.
Who, as I mentioned, chose the family business.
Well, and he came by it naturally. I mean, we started him out hanging banners at radio station events when he was in junior high school. Both of our kids would work events. And so he got bitten by the bug early, and I told you earlier, too, he actually won a contest with Target to be a ball boy for the Rockets when he was in junior high school.
That's
and
great.
That's when he really got bitten by the basketball bug. But
so did he do every home game? Was he at every home game?
I believe, yeah.
Wow,
yeah,
that's great.
Yeah, pretty sure he's doing that, yeah.
I always wanted to be a bat boy for the Yankees, but
Did
it never panned out.
Well, you should have entered the contest at Target.
I should have, exactly.
So a couple of other stories that are coming out this morning that we were kind of bouncing back and forth, and you came across a story of a physician who is, he's doing well. Professionally, he's reached his goal, but he's laboring under an enormous amount of debt.
So this is a fellow, this is a Wall Street Journal article, a fellow named Mike Meru, M-E-R-U. He has $1 million in student loan debts, and this has been making its way around the financial.
$1 million in student loan debt?
$1 million. He's 37 years old. He pays, the article says, almost $1,600 a month. which is not enough to cover the interest. So his debt from 7 years at the University of Southern California grows by about $130 a day.
Yeah.
So pretty sad. In 2 decades, it says his loan balance will be $2 million.
That's crazy.
Crazy, yeah.
I believe that's part of the U.S. higher education and student loan bubble. I was actually discussing that on Twitter this morning, and something I've been warning about for a long time, that you have this explosion of student debt, and the figures just came out, I think, last week, where student loans have hit $1.5 trillion, and basically just 12 years ago, they were only at like 300 or 400 billion.
Now, is part of that because, my understanding is, you get a student loan, and you can spend it on anything you want. It doesn't necessarily go to the school for tuition. It doesn't necessarily go to the bookstore for books. You can use it for food, rent, partying, whatever you want to do. Is that true?
I don't know to what percentage, but I've heard many stories of that. Yeah, that they can use that toward, people use it for going on trips for spring break and so on. You know.
Is that the case of this doctor? Did he kind of live extravagantly as a student?
I don't think he did. I'm sort of making my way through the article now, and
what kind of doctor is he?
He's an
orthodontist.
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 Yeah.
So it's gonna be like pulling teeth to get that thing paid.
Ouch.
Literally.
So actually, it gives a chart of the debt, and it really sort of started to skyrocket in 2012. I'm not sure what his graduation year was, but so it looks like 2012 was the year it really started to escalate.
Wow.
And was that because he was defaulting? I didn't see the full article. I didn't have a chance to read everything, but was he defaulting on it, or why did it explode so much?
Yeah, it says the USC education helped Mr. Maru earn $225,000 last year, so he makes pretty good paycheck.
2.25 in income last year?
2.25 in income, working for a corporate practice in Draper, Utah, 20 minutes from Salt Lake City. That compares with $158,000 median income for dentists, according to the Labor Department.
Yeah.
So he does relatively well. Mr. Maru became so frustrated with the high interest rates that he helped start a national dental student movement to lobby Congress to lower rates on grad students. The effort went nowhere.
What is the rate on a student loan nowadays?
Good question, Jesse.
Off the top of my head, don't know.
Yeah,
I bet it's not prime.
I know, that's for sure.
So
I used to shame credit card companies. They would call me up with a pitch on the phone. Hey, Mr. Clanton, we'd like to give you this MasterCard.
Yeah.
And we'd kind of go through the details. And I said, okay, so what's the rate on this? Oh, it's 25%. And I said, seriously? Do you know what the prime rate is? And they didn't know. And I would tell them.
Yeah.
And I would say, how do you sleep at night?
How do you sleep at night?
You know, I love doing that to telemarketers, by the way. So if you happen to be a telemarketer and you call me, that's what you're going to get.
You're in trouble, right?
That's exactly right.
So I'm looking up the prime rate now. Let's see.
It can't be much.
Can't be much. Wall Street Journal prime rate. Looks like it's 4.75.
Okay.
Yeah. Compared to 4 a year ago.
Yeah.
So it's up, but it's still
so he's probably paying 8%, maybe? Something like that?
Yeah. That's probably right.
Which is crazy.
Yeah.
On $1 million.
On $1 million.
Gosh, what's the monthly payment on something like that?
It said just under $1,600 a month.
That's a mortgage payment.
It's a mortgage payment. It's painful, but at the same time, with his salary, you wouldn't. Is it possible? What's he making? 20 grand a month.
Yeah.
After taxes, 10.
But he's slogging away.
Away.
It's never gonna end well.
It's not gonna. Yeah, it's probably not gonna end well.
And, so this is the poster child for what's wrong with the student loan program.
Yep.
And perhaps he could be made an example of in a good way.
Yeah.
Of how to remediate something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So, and they can't discharge that debt either on their credit card or mortgages and so on.
Right.
Well, with the change in legislation, they certainly could.
Well, that would be the only way.
That's just crazy. One other story that I came across this morning that I can barely stomach this. Experts call insect dairy the next superfood. We're talking about cockroach milk.
Oh, gee.
Have you guys heard about this?
I haven't heard about that.
Okay, this is a story from CBS. I got to give them credit for it, okay? But scientists have found that the Pacific beetle cockroach of Hawaii possesses nutrient-filled milk crystals with which they feed their young. And a single crystal is estimated to contain more than 3 times the energy of an equivalent mass of dairy milk.
Wow.
Now, you kind of have to put your chemistry hat on and kind of imagine what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
But it's sort of like octane density in petroleum products. So this is the super fuel. But that's going to be a marketing challenge.
That is. What did they say? The 2 forms of life that will likely survive a nuclear holocaust are cockroaches and Keith Richards.
Exactly.
So when Keith Richards, if he ever dies, they'll probably find something similar.
Yeah.
Well, you know what's funny? I eat bee pollen, so it sounds strange to eat something from an insect. But meanwhile, every morning I put bee pollen in my cereal.
Well, I like bee pollen.
You've had it too?
Oh, I love it.
Have you had some of mine?
Great.
It's extremely good. It actually tastes a little bit like flowers. The reason why I eat it is it's actually an antioxidant. It fights free radicals. It fights aging and cancer.
Or as Austin Powers would say, it tastes a little nutty.
Have you been to restaurants out here? You've been to Taco Bell, right?
Yeah, I've been to Taco
You've been
Bell.
eating bugs without you even knowing.
Oh, gee. Oh, no. I don't want
Well,
to
you
know
ever
about
read
that
those
if I
studies?
have.
You ever read those studies about really how many bugs we ingest as humans without even knowing
heard
it?
that.
Not realizing it. Yeah.
It's protein.
Protein.
Low carb, keto.
So Richard Rosso
Have a roach.
has joined us here this
Yeah, can't you tell it was like the bull in the china shop?
That's okay. No, it's okay. This is the thing
Or the
about
BS in the
about
China shop.
podcast. It's like it's very unscripted, and at the same time as I'm doing
It's a mess.
this,
It's a mess,
I'm also
yeah.
having to engineer the cameras, and we had one die a while ago, which I'm going to throw out the window here in a minute. But anyway, it's nice to have you in the frame.
Well, it'd be nice if you had more arms to
there's
do
that.
things. Because
Sure.
you seem like you have more than 2 arms when you...
Sometime.
Yeah.
So how you been? Where you been? What you been doing?
Oh, we just, it's just market stuff and what we do every day.
Yeah.
Taking care of clients.
It's all good.
Helping them understand the markets as best we can. We get a lot of great accolades on the writings, which I'm always happy to hear on the blog.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So people really enjoy the blog.
Lots of good feedbacks.
Yeah.
Very
So-
good.
We were just talking about cars a little while ago. New York Times front page of the paper, or at least the online edition, says Mustang means freedom. Why Ford is saving an American icon. So just what we were
Mustang
saying-
means freedom.
Yeah, that's a quote.
You know what my
someone in the
theory
article.
was about auto companies looking more to buy SUVs?
Yeah.
Why we buy or SUVs are more popular? Because the infrastructure underneath the automobiles is falling apart. So if you have an automobile, you probably have ruined chassis and all kinds of stuff with all the potholes. At least an SUV, it's like you feel like you can get through it, right?
My wife was driving on the Sam Houston Tollway day before yesterday, and something came through the windshield.
What?
Yeah, I mean, it's literally the
Is it-
hole in the windshield. It's not a hole, but it's a shatter.
Yeah.
Where it does the shatter pattern. But this is where the film between the 2 layers of glass actually kept the glass from falling
Good
apart
thing.
and this thing come in. But it's this big around.
Did you
no
you,
kidding.
You didn't see it. She
no,
didn't see what
she
it
didn't
was.
see what it was, and it's over on the passenger side. And she drives a
didn't
Jeep
hit her?
Commander.
Well,
so,
it's a good thing it was on the passenger side,
Yeah.
because it would have really maybe.
So that's my weekend project is to get the glass changed out. We've already got that arranged.
You know
but-
what I hate? When you're behind, and you're going to see it a lot out here. Okay, you're going to be behind these cement trucks.
Yeah.
and they're not responsible for ruining your automobile.
It's true.
Wow.
Yeah.
and they should be responsible.
Especially if they haven't cleaned that.
That's what my point is.
That
If you
gutter
have
gate
the
thing.
negligence that you
Yeah.
have not cleaned all that gunk, and you get stuck behind, and that stuff's blowing in, and then
Wow.
I've had
You know
paint
what, though?
on hoods.
They say
Shit.
they're not responsible, but if that happens to you and you've got one of those dash cams and you've got footage of raw concrete falling out of the back of that
think
that
that would
cement
help?
truck? Absolutely. There's no judge in the world that wouldn't deny that kind of claim.
Got to get a dash cam.
Yeah.
So here's the Mustang article. So the Mustang was one of the few cars that survived now that Ford is going to all SUV and pickup lineup. Get rid of the Mustang, asked James Farley, Ford's president of global markets, when asked this week how the Mustang had survived. The Mustang is like Rocky. It survived the 1970s fuel crisis, the glam 1980s, the move to SUVs. It made it through every round of cuts.
Why didn't the Pinto? I really like the Pinto.
Because they exploded.
No, yeah, but you can fix
On
those. The new
impact.
Pinto? Come on. Pinto means freedom.
And the Maverick, which was a bloated Pinto.
My grandpa had one of those.
Oh,
it was
boy.
a beauty.
Yeah.
It was orange and brown.
Oh, the orange ones.
yeah, the two-tone.
So, Jesse,
We lived large.
you going to get you a Mustang?
You know what? I've been really interested in those Mustangs. But the thing is, I think too many people have them. They're just too ubiquitous. I remember, here in Houston, and I remember
Yeah.
on Long Island, New
He's
York.
got to get
where
a truck. He can't be
I'm
driving
not
no
a truck
Mustang.
guy.
huh?
No, I'm not. I'm not a truck. It's not really my style too
I don't
much.
see Jesse in a truck.
I would do it I'll do it when I get a ranch in the country, which I want to do. But to drive around in the city, I don't know.
But you're never going to be able to let that thing loose. You're never going to let those horses run on 610.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen.
I love that new Mustang, though. I love that engine. Especially that V8. It's got one of the best engines out there, basically.
Yeah.
But the thing is, they're everywhere. So it's like I don't want to have a car that everyone has.
And go to eBay. 1976 orange Pinto
Probably be more expensive than the Mustang.
with a tan interior.
Or Carvana.
Carvana.
Yeah, the automobile vending machine.
I love that.
I just showed my parents that last night. Actually, we just passed by and they never saw it because we didn't have that in New York.
Carvana and her husband bought
Yeah,
one.
they bought one
Yeah.
from there. How does it
Yeah.
even work, though? You have to.
Well, you put the quarter in.
Yeah, and then the car gets.
I
comes
want
with-
B12.
Yeah.
And you punch the number up.
That's so funny.
They deliver the car to you
Really.
on a Carvana van. You see
Yeah,
those vans
yeah.
around town?
What's the advantage of it compared to a normal car dealer?
Well,
I guess you don't have to haggle, right?
less fuss. That's what
You
she
go
said.
in, you pick the
Yeah.
car. I think that's all for show, obviously. It's
Oh,
all
it
a marketing
absolutely is.
gimmick
It would
because
have
you
to
go
be.
online and
Yeah.
look for it, and then you get the car delivered.
But you got to admit, it's iconic.
Yeah. What's weird though, it's when it's empty, and it reminds me like when you're at Kenny and Ziggy's
Yeah.
and the cake is out of the glass display. I hate that.
Yeah.
It's like, why shouldn't I have a car in there?
And what kind of delivery truck restocks that machine?
Exactly.
I'm just saying.
They should turn that into a club and just have
yeah.
people in them
That'd
in
be
that thing.
fun.
Don't you think?
A date machine.
Date Fauna.
A date machine.
Date
Date
fauna.
I'll
fauna.
take C17. Here's my new idea.
There
I'm
you-
done, Lance.
There you go.
I'm over. Date Fauna.
Yeah. Who was it? James Caan was quoted today as
He's still alive?
Well, yeah. Yes, he is. And he was remarking about Harvey Weinstein turning himself in, and the whole Me Too movement.
Yeah.
And this is not a direct quote, but this is the essence of what he said, that all of this is really dampening guys who want to hit on girls. He said this.
I'm not going to go anywhere
leave
with
that-
this because I'm going
let
to
it
get in trouble.
hang
Yeah,
out
no,
there.
exactly.
But I'm hearing a
comment.
lot of sentiment from friends of mine who are scared to death to ask women out on dates.
Yeah, I've heard that too.
They are afraid.
Well-
and maybe they've always treated women well, but they are just afraid to take that step. Frankly, I am too. I don't know. I worry. I worry that someone's going to create a story. I think that's fine. I mean, it could happen to women too. But I think we have to always look at it and understand that there are people that legitimately this is a great movement, but there are going to be people who take advantage of it and might use it to exploit certain situations. And unfortunately, I've seen really good men who are friends of mine who've always treated women well say, I just don't know if I should be dating anymore. I'm a little worried. And you ever see they have an app now, a consensual app.
A consensual
Like,
act?
in other words, do you want to get together? Yes or no? If we go back to your place, or do we agree? And both parties, no, go ahead and you'll see
Like
there are
signing a contract.
Yes, it is a bunch of
Contractual
No,
now.
it is.
Really?
No, there are quite a few of
sad
these
that it's
apps
come
now
to
because
that,
I
but-
started saying I was thinking that I would wanted to create an app for this. Like I told them, hey, let's create an app, and both parties consent, and if they go
Oh,
back to each
man.
other's place, if nothing's supposed to happen, you agree, or if you change your mind, and then you both sign it, or electronically
Really
it goes
cover
into the
yourself,
app, and
cover
you
your
both
rear
and you
end.
both cover each other's rear.
It's like it's like that fantasy room.
And
on
guess
the,
what?
The
2 weeks after
Bachelorette.
we were talking about it, there it is.
There it is.
And they charge a monthly fee, and you both have to consent. And there's a whole series of consent along the way of the date.
Is it like those legal aid subscriptions where they guarantee that they'll represent you in court if the thing
No,
goes
no,
bad?
it's just that you're both agreeing at that time, and I can't remember how the app works, but generally speaking, it prevents issues from occurring on both sides.
Allegedly.
And guess what? If you got to do that, then you might as well stay home with the dogs.
Right.
Hi.
Right. And also, I heard that basically the news came out a few weeks ago that the U.S. birth rate hit an all-time low.
Yeah, dearth
And that-
rate, we're calling it.
Right.
Dearth
And I
rate.
saw one of the discussions was that maybe it could drop even lower as a result of this, this dating culture.
No, again, I mean, we're not
and-
trying to minimize
Yeah.
the impact
No,
of
of
what's
course not,
happened
but-
to women. I'm an advocate for women. I
as
just
am I.
think that it is going to create some other situations that we're not aware of
And
yet.
that trend right there, the dearth rate, is something that is very dangerous. You
Oh,
look at what has
demographically
happened
for an
in Japan.
economy?
Yeah, look what happened to Japan over the
definitely.
last 40 years.
Yeah, I mean,
and
most
why they're where
important-
they are.
Absolutely, one of the most important elements to an economy, right?
Exactly.
Is
the birth
demographics.
rate, yeah.
Especially when you have a stagnant economy, you really have a high cost of living.
Yep.
People working long hours.
Yep.
There's things that discourage basically making babies. So
So I wonder if
That's
that's
the
what
direction
happened in
we're heading.
Japan.
That is, it's a demographic wave of.
No, I
old-
mean the dating thing, though.
Well, that's what. Well, actually, have you read that most of the women in Japan that can't find a date, most of the men sit at home all day.
Yeah.
right, they're otakus. It's
Yeah.
called otaku basically. They're
Extra
obsessed
women,
with,
right?
No,
Is
no. The men. It's
No,
the men.
the men.
who are
It's the
obsessed
men.
with anime, and they live in these
Anime.
virtual worlds, and they have these 2D girlfriends. I was reading about it the other day.
It's the women
just-
that are
it's
having.
bizarre.
There's nothing wrong with the women. They're like, what's going on with the guys here?
Yeah, but there's
Yeah.
there's a term for those women who've not been married by the time they're 23 or 24.
Oh, really?
And
I'm not
the,
sure
the
of it.
translation of it is essentially an extra woman.
All right, I think that was China
or leftovers
but,
or something
But similar,
like
yeah,
that.
that's a
Yeah.
phenomenon. I
Well,
think,
Japan
throughout
is leading
Asia.
the sex robot revolution.
Right.
What?
Yeah, this one. I mean, I'm reading all these stories about these guys that are falling in love with their sex robots, and it always seems to be
Yeah.
in Japan.
Man, what kind of algorithm
real
does your
dolls
search
and
engine
stuff.
have?
You don't even want to know, because I'm almost there when I can afford one of those robots. Then I'm done. They look real.
No.
Yeah.
I've never been to Japan. It sounds like an odd, strange place.
Oh my God! Some of the stories crack me up about the men, the middle-aged men, and they take them into the hot tubs with them, and some of them are married. Some of the men are married, but the women don't want anything. Wives don't want anything to do with them anyway, so they fall in love with these roles. It's Japan seems very depressing to me. I mean, it just seems like they've given up.
Does sound depressing.
I mean, my goodness. But I mean, again, this is all anecdotal, but there are there are some major demographic headwinds
Challenges.
in Japan, and they call us a little bit maybe Japan light,
Yeah,
because we follow
right.
that mode. There's a great economist, Richard Koo, who wrote about the macroeconomics of comparing U.S. and Japan, who I started reading in 2006. Got the holy grail of macroeconomics. Great, he's got some great books that Richard Koo has written, saying that U.S. was going to be like Japan in these ways, and he wrote that before the crisis. And Lance
Right,
talks
balance sheet recession.
Right, balance sheet recession, and Lance talks about this a lot as well. So we are sort of following that trend in many ways. How many times does Lance talk about? He's he's like a curmudgeon sometimes, right? Those, all they do is sit home and play video games, right? I mean, but that's what's happening in Japan.
Yeah.
With the men.
And here too, actually,
That's
with
what I
the,
mean.
with the
That's what he was
generation,
talking
right?
about.
Exactly,
Yeah.
Generation Z, especially. So
I've heard there's something called the diaper ratio, the ratio of adult diapers compared to
Yes.
over children's
okay.
diapers. And
What?
in Japan, no, because they do. They need more adult diapers than they do.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely.
Now I am depressed.
That's how you know your society's getting old.
oh yeah.
Holy shit, I looked at the day for adult diapers where I don't have to get up. Just go right there. Oh my God, that's like paradise. I'm going to start now. So I'm the one who's looking forward to the adult diapers. I want ones that like underoos, like Batman and Superman.
Cracking up.
So I got to share this.
Yeah.
I had the lens replacement surgery done on my eyes this past week.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I've always thought that lens replacement was for old people, because anybody who had ever heard
Anybody want to tell Brad anything right now?
yeah anyone that ever heard it had it was because they were blind as a bat
Absolutely.
because of the cataracts and stuff. So, hey, I'm 63. I was getting the cataract thing. And it got to the point where I'd pull up to a traffic light and I would see 3 of them.
Wow.
And so the doctor said, it's time, go get this done.
Now, at least you wouldn't miss the red light, right? 'Cause
That's
you
right.
had 3 of them.
Yeah, exactly.
So you wouldn't go through one.
Stop 3 times.
Yeah.
The beauty of it is, though, that the technology has advanced to the point where it's painless.
Mm-hmm.
It is absolutely perfect in the correction that it gives.
Wow.
And I am astounded by the clarity. My father, who is 80, he'll be 89 in a week, had his done a couple of years ago, and he's walking around raving how he's got the eyes of a 5-year-old, and he's driving my mom crazy. Look at that over there. Look at that over here.
Oh,
and that kind of
goodness.
stuff. Now I understand what he was talking about.
Wow.
You
That's
know.
great.
So you must see the city differently, right? Those are your bunion removal and are you fat billboards must really pop.
That's right. They really do.
Okay.
Yes, they do. So, I'm not going to poo-poo diapers, but no pun intended. But we're all getting there.
Yeah.
We're all getting there.
Does the Astrodome look a little bit more moldier than usual, or is it?
You know what, though?
What?
Everything is brighter.
Yeah.
I mean, because
I always thought everything around here needed a power wash, but you're just telling me I need to get my eyes
it's
fixed.
just your eyes.
Damn.
It's just your. I accused my wife of changing out the light bulbs in the kitchen because I turned on the lights and it was so much
was so
brighter.
bright.
You say,
Yeah.
what did you do?
Yeah, she says, "Are you nuts?" But I mean, that's the difference in the
Your greatest risk
relative
is
illumination.
the missus goes and gets her eyes done and goes, what happened?
Yeah, that's it for me. Then keep her in the dark.
Take your eyes out.
Could very
No, but it's
well be.
amazing. Technology is amazing.
Yeah,
I mean,
it
how
is.
fast you recovered as well. I mean, you were here working. And,
I had one eye done. I had them done a week apart, and so by the time the first eye had healed, and the second eye was done, they were each able to augment one another, and the results are just astounding. And
Amazing.
I guess we should mention it's Dr. Jesse McKee at the Whitsett Vision Group.
Yeah,
They got it
they're
going
kick
on.
butt over there.
Yeah, that's
for
right.
sure.
That's right.
You all using them, for sure.
So we're about out of time. Any last
Sorry I
thoughts?
disrupted
before
everybody.
No, that's all right. Any last thoughts before we head out for Memorial Day weekend? I guess not. It's kind of quiet over there.
Would it be a
Enjoy your
good
weekend.
weekend to review your credit card statements for fraud? Because let me tell you, it's out there. Go
Yeah.
through things. Have a little bit of a financial date. Go through your money. Go through your your asset allocations. Read the newsletter. I mean, spend a little time re-engaging with your money. That's always a good idea.
All right.
Good advice.
John?
I agree. Spend some time, go over your accounts, check your asset allocation. I know that sounds really boring, but not
Don't
a
read
bad
any
idea.
of Jesse's stuff. It'll ruin your weekend. It's really depressing.
I'm going to nap. That's what I'm going to do. Hey, thanks for joining us this afternoon. We welcome your feedback. Find us on Facebook or online at Real Investment News and realinvestmentadvice.com. The Underbelly podcast is available on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and wherever you download your favorite podcast audio. Have a good weekend. Thanks for watching us.